let's talk about this. I don't know what this website was. It was just an analytics website. Looked at all 32 teams and the moves that they made.
Yes.
And they say that the moves that the Browns made will result in a net gain of 20 points.
Yes.
And if you factor those 20 points into their points for and points against last year in the average margin of decision, they say that the Browns' moves this free agent period, this offseason, is worth 3 wins.
Correct.
That's the 5th highest improvement in the NFL. Are you guys buying that?
Wait a second. That's based on last year's point differential?
There was an algorithm that put together the player values.
What site was this?
Anthony, pull up the
Yeah, I wanted to know that too. It wasn't in the note.
That's a bad way to do it.
Well,
based on
it's a way to do it, Bull. I don't know what the best way to do it is.
Yeah.
But it's a way to do it.
But last year's numbers to me are meaningless. Every year's a new year.
I think it's taking into equation how close certain games were. I mean, and look at this. The Eagles, Buccaneers, and Chiefs are the bottom 3. I don't think the Eagles are going to take a 7-step loss-win record differential back.
I don't
the
buy.
Chiefs aren't going to lose 6-7 games next year.
I think the Browns roster now is better than it was at the end of last year, but I don't. They're only going to get a 3-win improvement if Deshaun Watson plays better, not because of the guys they added.
I'm wondering if that wasn't factored into all of this anyhow. I don't know.
If that's it, I mean, then there's an assumption of how well he's going to play.
I think it was just the offseason
This was based just on the offseason.
on the roster changes so far.
I can't buy 3 wins.
Here's the way deductive reasoning works. This is unless there's a way that they use that I don't know of. It appears that what they've done is first come up with the quantitative number of 20 points. That's the points added. Then you would go to points for, points against last year, average differential margin. And if you roll those 20 points that they say that they've improved in, and they're taking a lot of assumptions into this.
Yes.
So
it's a very imperfect science.
It's imperfect and it's not scientific.
It's a because schedule.
And the other teams have changed too.
Right, exactly.
So what they're saying is from last year's roster, this would be a pickup of 20 points, a net gain of 20 points. And that would mean more than 1 point per game more onto your points per game average, or on the differential. It would mean you're adding 1.3 to your point per game differential.
Yeah.
And then they run those numbers and say that would have given them 3 more wins. There's a lot of assumptions in that. A lot of assumptions.
If you're just basing that on the players they added and Watson is not a factor in that,
I think that's it.
It makes no sense because if Deshaun Watson doesn't play well, there's 0 chance the Browns will win 10 games. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if Deshaun Watson is a bottom 10 quarterback, again, I think that's not going to happen. But if it does, there's no way the Browns win 10 games.
I'm looking at this slightly differently than that, Bo. And I do think Watson is the biggest win-loss factor in the Browns season this year. But I look at Tomlinson. I look at Obo. I look at Hurst, Hill, the guys they've added on defense, and then added in with Schwartz. And I think Schwartz, even though he's not technically an offseason move, may be the single biggest factor on win-loss sliding scale.
You can't factor that into an acquired players
I'm just going to do it
but I see what you're doing, yeah. I agree with you, by the way.
Outside of Watson, obviously, I think Schwartz makes more of a difference than any individual player for 2 reasons.
Couldn't agree more.
One, I do think they obviously addressed the defensive line with Tomlinson, the Hurst-Hill combo, whatever that is. They can't be worse at stopping the run.
Right.
And with Schwartz, who has been an elite developer of interior defensive lineman talent throughout his career, that's going to open up everything for their linebackers.
Right.
And these linebackers, the Browns have J.O.K., Taki, Jacob Phillips. Say what you want about them.
They all suck.
They're all hurt.
Yeah.
They're all small, but they are fast. And the one thing we didn't see last year was them shed blocks and make plays. So I'm hoping that with Schwartz's tutelage, these defensive linemen can eat up offensive linemen and let these linebackers
the Browns win
to
10
fly
games
around
if
and play.
Watson doesn't play well.
No, and I said,
chance.
no, I agree with that. I'm saying Watson is the number 1 sliding scale in this. But I'm going to trust Schwartz to make the interior defensive line that much better, that the linebackers can fly around and make plays. And that's why I do think these moves, in theory, could equate to a couple wins.
Let me give you this. So say, for instance, like you're a chemist, right?
Breaking Bad.
And so you're a chemist, you know all these chemicals, right? And so there's a chemical spill, right? And everyone just hanging out, they don't know if it's poisonous or not. Obviously, they don't know whether it's a chemical spill that's going to kill you.
Kind of like Palestine.
Right. So when the panic hits you as a chemist, because you see that chemical on the ground, is because you know intimately, like, what's coming next with that.
Yeah.
And you're one of a few people that know. Let me give you an example. You say, G. Bush, where are you going with it? I intimately know about defensive linemen. If there's nothing else I know, is watching these big dudes up front. A lot of people just watch the ball, or it is what it is. You don't know anybody play D-line. You never played it.
You notice them when they make an impact.
I
The
know
average fan.
how hard it is as a defensive lineman to stop the run. People throw it out there as a misnomer. You got to understand, you trying to fight in your gap, you get double teamed, you don't know the snap count, you don't know the direction of the ball, you don't even know if it's a run or a pass. You are basically, as a defensive lineman, you are the infantry in the brigade. You are, when people used to line up and say, line up, and they used to line up behind them, the red coats and everybody shoot, that first line was the guys that usually got killed first.
They all did.
They died first
All
quickly.
died, yep.
They're the defensive linemen.
What you were doing
war.
as a defensive lineman is dying 60 deaths.
Wow.
That's what you're doing. Your goal is to sacrifice and die 60 times in a game to make sure that ball does not go there.
Right.
The people who count are the ones behind it coming through to clean it up. And right now,
So you don't like dismissing the importance of linebackers?
you can't have one without the other. They are tied to the hip.
Hand in glove.
And here's something we have to be realistic about also when it comes to the defensive line. Have the Browns gotten better on the defensive line? They have.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we got to remember, the Browns had the worst offensive line in the league, defensive line
Yeah.
in the league last year.
According to Jason,
So
historically.
They
almost.
haven't gone from the basement to the penthouse. Maybe they're in the middle. Maybe. I think we'd all sign for the middle.
Yeah.
I don't even
We
know.
pop
if-
champagne for the
The
middle.
reality is, if you're talking about the run defense, let's see how much better. Well, at one end, you got Myles Garrett. You still have Myles Garrett. There's no change. The other end, the one thing you say about Jadeveon Clowney, he's always been an elite run stopper as an end.
Yep.
So I don't know that they got any better at that end spot.
I don't know that it was last year.
Maybe not, but I don't know. I can't remember if Obo's any good against the run. I don't remember offhand.
He's physical and aggressive, but he hasn't played enough to really get
Right.
a true
Now,
evaluation.
obviously, with Tomlinson, at one of the tackle spots, they've gotten better, clearly significantly better. At the other tackle spot to this point, we don't know. Hurst hasn't played in 2 years. The other guy. So I think out of 4 spots right now on the D-line, against the run specifically, we could say they are significantly better in one of those 4 spots and probably equal at the others. So I don't know. They're better, and I like what they've done.
Yes.
And I think I think it's promising.
Yes.
I think the defense is clearly better now, but we got to be realistic about how much better they are because there's still at least one potential weak spot on the D-line, and they still have nothing at linebacker.
One band, one sound. You know, I watch Drumline all the time.
Great
You can be, everybody can be in their gap, and it take one person not to be in their gap, and it looks like you guys don't know what you're doing because he's going to score and not get touched.
That's where Jim Schwartz comes in.
Yeah.
In my mind. I hate to roll on Joe Woods so hard, but I'd said last week that I kind of blame 85% of the defensive woes on the guy that was drawing up the X's and O's. I just thought that there were too many times where guys were looking around, pointing fingers, and I know some of it goes on the players. I'm not going to absolve the players of some responsibility because they ultimately are very responsible, but I just feel like it's like a classroom with a bad teacher. Mm-hmm. When you take that teacher out of the mix and you put a new teacher in there that energizes the students, teaches them what they need to learn in a more constructive way and a way that is sinking in better. I just think, and I like his no nonsense. You know, he's a football man.
I think we all agree, Jay, but, you know, he's not going to make every player significantly
better.
better.
Make the unit significantly better.
Everybody agrees the defense
How
is
they
gonna be
fit
better.
together is going to be better.
He can't turn nothing into something at linebacker, and they really have nothing.
Now, he might be able to hide it a little better.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no doubt.
They still need linebackers,
Right.
period. End of discussion.
They need
still
healthy
need talent.
linebackers because
Yeah.
the linebackers they have right now just currently aren't physically able to go out and do what they
They
need
were
to
all
do.
hurt last year.
I'm telling you, if you went out and it's just the way you think. When you go out and you get Bobby Wagner, that transforms everything you're trying to do.
You really only need.
You only need one guy.
Quite often these days, you're only playing 2 linebackers.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get one good one,
You could,
And it's okay if the second guy's not great.
Because I'm trying to rehabilitate JOK, right? Like right now, I don't think he has the fundamentals. He never really played linebacker in college specifically. I need somebody to get with him to say, JOK, what better person to watch film with than Bobby Wagner to say, these are your keys. When the guard does this, automatically go right there because there's 9 times out of 10 it's coming with this play. Hey, when you're inside out on that tackle, I noticed that you went high on there. Right? No, you get him low. I watched film on him years. He's going to try to do X, Y, and Z. That's how you can get another coach on the field. And for me, it's not about getting all name brand guys. You just need to figure out on your roster where I could put a guy that could pay dividends down the line and exponentially grow your team and your roster. That's it. You just need one guy.
We can thank Bill Belichick for the modern-day linebacker and what he looks like. Belichick decided, you know what? The tight end is a very, very important position. Once thought of as, 80% block, once in a while spring free and catch a third down ball. Belichick showed you can win multiple Super Bowls if you're very, very strong at that position. And what that created were mismatches for the physical tight ends like the Aaron Hernandez and the Gronkowskis. You could not ask a big, slower linebacker to cover those guys in pass routes. So the evolution of the linebacker was we need smaller, faster. The Browns bought into that. The problem with smaller, faster, look at how much our linebackers were injured last year.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, Jay. I'm glad you bring that up. And man, you taking it from 2 injury-prone guys right here. Like, I was a defensive lineman. And if you look at the percentiles, I'm probably one of the biggest people in the world, basically, on percentiles if you're playing football.
G. Bush is a giant. People don't realize how big G. Bush is.
You're in the 99th percentile.
Yeah.
But when you are playing and you're trying to stop the run, that stuff puts a strain on your body, man.
Well, look at our guys that got hurt last year.
Who
was our linebacker that didn't get hurt last year?
Didn't exist.
None.
They were all
Didn't
hurt.
exist.
And some of them a lot of them season end.
I'm just curious, in today's football with the RPOs, the mobile quarterbacks spread out more than it ever has been, outside of the top 5, 6 guys, I'm not sure if there's that much of a difference between linebacker 8 and linebacker 26 in the league. So I'm not saying the Browns don't need to improve at linebacker.
Right.
But I just think it's such a weird position in today's NFL that
I don't disagree with you, Mike. Here's the problem: the Browns don't have guys.
listen, they do need a
50,
linebacker.
60, 70.
Yes, I'm not saying they don't need a linebacker. I just don't know.
Studs and duds theories. You need to mix in some mid-range guys, like you said on the defensive line.
Right.
Some of these guys are probably middle of the road. Huge upgrade from where we were.
Exactly.
And when you pair them with a Myles Garrett, who is elite, and you pair your average linebackers with corners and safeties who are more than average. Now, some of them are elite, some of them are borderline elite. You can hide those deficiencies, but what do we always say? The biggest part of ability is availability.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you're hurt, and I don't know that there was a team in the NFL last year that had more attrition to the linebacking core than the Browns did.
Yeah.
We pulled Reggie Ragland out of Dave's Food Market to start 4 games.
I thought G. Bush was going to sign as a linebacker. Tyvus was thinking about coming back as a linebacker.
Tyvus puts on 10 pounds. He is a linebacker.
All right, guys.
Close.
It's enough of this football nonsense. Let's get to some baseball.